there have been increasing protests against the ongoing Hindu genocide in Bangladesh, in the United States and other parts of the world. But the silence of the global leaders and usual paragons of freedom is serious. Today, over 100 Indian authors and academicians have drafted an open letter to the Indian government and leaders of the world demanding an urgent intervention with Muhammad Yunus and the Bangladesh army not acting against the mobs. Who will speak out? Will Joe Biden and Keir Starmer say anything? Will the global paragons of human rights and international media show any aggressive campaigns? What about those, of course, within India as well? Why don't they speak out? Amish Tripathi, renowned author and signatory of the letter, is joining us now on the broadcast. Amish, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. Do you agree with the fact that what is happening in Bangladesh is actually nothing short of a genocide?
It's not a point about what is happening right now. It is about what has been happening for the last 75 years. Pakistani scholar Farhanaz Isfahani and Bangladeshi scholar Professor Barkat from Dhaka University, they have written about it, they have spoken about it. At independence, the proportion of minorities of the Pakistani population was around 11-12%, if I remember my numbers correctly. Presently, it's down to some 2.5-3%. In Bangladesh, when they got their independence, it was approximately less than a third of the population. Today, the minorities are around 8.5 to 9%. That's nearly, a 20% drop. That is actually the very definition of a genocide now. Many were killed, many forcibly converted, many ethnically cleansed. I think the biggest killing, this has been written by many Bangladeshis, the fastest killing happened in 1971 when Pakistan did Operation Searchlight. And approximately, estimates vary, but around 2 to 3 million Bangladeshis were killed. And most of them were disproportionately Hindus. So essentially, it's a Hindu, Christian, and Sikh minorities in West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which have been, there are many millions, and if you calculate the reduction in proportion of population and multiplied by the base population today, there are 60 million fewer minorities than there should have been.
Yes. Why has Muhammad Yunus allowed this coordinated campaign against the Hindus then, in your opinion?
The point that I made very clearly is not really about the present government. This has been going on for 75 years, 80 years, in both West Pakistan and East Pakistan. So it's not like a particular regime. If it's a particular regime, then you can, then perhaps the world can do something. But if something has been happening to minorities, like I said, Hindus, Christians, and Sikhs, for the last many decades, then actually it's a state program. It's not a particular regime. And this is the most oppressed minority group in the world, and the world has to do something about it to save them. Most of the Hindus that survive in Pakistan and Bangladesh, which was formerly East Pakistan, are backward caste, or what would be called scheduled caste Hindus. There are Christians and Sikhs as well. And the world has to do all it can to save the few that survive.
Yes. Amish, why do you think there is such silence when it comes to the Hindus in Bangladesh as compared to, say, Gaza or Ukraine?
There are various, reasons why things get picked up across the world, largely because perhaps maybe it serves the interests of the powers that be, and that's the nature of the world. I'm not judging it. Powerful nations act often ruthlessly for what they believe is in their long-term interest. But it's not particularly just Hindus. The Christians in Bangladesh and Pakistan are ignored as well by the West. The Sikhs of Pakistan are ignored as well. But you're right, they are largely Hindus. Most of the minorities of Pakistan and Bangladesh who've been wiped out are largely Hindus. And I guess perhaps we in India must introspect that what have we done to bring attention to this and to help this beleaguered minority. I wrote an article on this in 2019. I've written articles on it earlier as well on this subject. in a sense, the CAA was an attempt to save some of these beleaguered minority populations of Pakistan and Bangladesh. But we need to do much more.
Yes. What do we do then with the people who have or will downplay these incidents as well as isolated attacks?
What we have to do is bring out data. If they say it's isolated attacks, why are there 60 million fewer minorities than they should have been in the last 75, 80 years? This is obviously not, they are not isolated attacks. It's a concerted, regular, there's no other word for it, pogrom. And the data and the numbers showed very, very clearly. And one must put this point across calmly, but one must put this point across that there is a pogrom going on. It has been going on for many decades, and we need to save those who survive.
Yes. Do you also believe that India needs to do more for Bangladesh Hindus, Amish?
Yes, of course, we need to do more. But having said that, one understands how international relations work. Things are complicated. India has to work with whichever government is in power, including at times with countries. I mean, Bangladesh used to be a very close country, and I'm sure it is. But even with Pakistan, we've been forced to work with the government the way it is. But that does not mean that we don't have tools to save these beleaguered minorities. And in many ways, they are those who are left behind by the partition. The partition of India, of British India, is a reality. And there was a Nehru-Liaquat Pact, which was signed in 1950, where Prime Minister Nehru asked then Pakistan, West Pakistan, East Pakistan, to take care of their non-Muslim minorities, and in turn, India will take care of its Muslim minorities. I'm not saying India is perfect, but the minority proportion in India has gone up. Muslims, for example, used to be around 8.5%, 9% of the population at independence. Today, they are around 15%. Whereas Prime Minister Liaquat and West Pakistan and East Pakistan post that have clearly carried out what can only be called a pogrom. Minorities have been wiped out. They did not honor what the Nehru-Liaquat Pact was. So India has to step up and do all it can. And we are a democracy, which means that we as people must raise this issue and put pressure, completely understanding that the situation is volatile and complicated. And the Indian government will have to work with whichever government is in power in Bangladesh. But we must expect and demand the protection of the minorities and do all we can to protect them.
Yes. Who will be responsible then if these attacks against Bangladesh Hindus continue?
More than actually focusing on one individual, what we need to realize, if it's been happening over 70, 80 years, it is a state and societal problem. It's not a particular regime. It has been happening consistently for 75, 80 years. Some hard questions need to be asked of these societies of West Pakistan and East Pakistan. No one seems to want to do that.
All right, Amish Tripathi, appreciate you joining us on NewsX with your perspective on this big story. Let me bring you in here first, Abhishek. What made you sign on this letter, and what more, according to you, needs to be done by India and the world?
Yeah, so the most important thing for me right now, at least, is that in 1971, there was genocide of Hindus in Bangladesh. And right now we are seeing a repeat of the persecution, not perhaps at the level of 1971, but definitely targeted persecution of Hindus in Bangladesh. My priority is that this should not go unnoticed by the world. And my priorities are dual. Not just that the attacks on Hindus must be recognized. The most important thing is that it should be recognized and put on record that Hindus are being attacked because they are Hindus. Because there is a very dangerous attempt being made to hide this and to say that, they are, they were supporters of Awami League and they are being attacked for their political identity, not their religious identity. This is a form of genocide denialism. And my priority is that that should not happen this time. They did it in 1971 and they are trying to do it again. And that is my priority, that it should be recognized. Not only should Hindus be protected, the other thing that should be known to everyone is that they are facing persecution because they are Hindus.
Yes. Also, Abhishek, does it disappoint you that more is not being done to speak up for the Bangladeshi Hindus?
Yes, absolutely. India needs to, because we have to understand that there is really only one country in the world with the population, with the civilization, and with the history. We are responsible for Hindus around the world. And this is a sense of responsibility that every Indian, every Hindu, and the Indian government must develop. And so we have to be even more vocal in saying that we have to protect Hindus around the world. And for that, of course, I'm not advocating any radical measures, but there is a matrix. There is a certain number of things that we are willing to do. There is an escalation matrix that we are willing to enter. This should be clear to everyone, to Bangladesh, the provisional government, to the shady backers that the provisional government has in other capitals around the world. They should understand that we are also willing to escalate.
Yes. Okay, let me also rope in Mijal Lastana. Then Mijal Lastana, violence against Hindus continuing in Bangladesh. Who will save them is the big question. And why isn't the government doing enough in Bangladesh, the interim government?
See, it's a very, shall I say, sad tale of Bangladesh, wherein the people who are supposed to maintain law and order, they themselves are looking for protection. That is the police of Bangladesh. And the army, which is supposed to control, is also following the diktat of the students with a proviso that we will not fire on the students, we will not fire anymore. Now, this is a recipe for anarchy. And this is exactly what is happening. Let me say in no uncertain terms, although the previous speaker just mentioned, the other speakers did mention about the societal problem and a long-term problem. I do agree that yes, there is a long-term problem that in both the neighbors, East as well as West, the minorities have decreased tremendously, except India where minorities have increased. So therefore, India continues to remain a secular country and accommodative of the minorities, and it is the reverse scenario in the other two sides. That's one part of it. But one thing is very certain, that people and professionals who are tasked for maintaining law and order, whether it is police or it is army or it is the security forces, they have to do their job. Now, unfortunately, that is not happening in Bangladesh. And certainly we need to flag. We don't have to unnecessarily intervene into somebody's internal affairs. That is understandable. But certainly we need to flag. If India doesn't flag this issue, who else will? Also, let me highlight some more statistics as was being mentioned. See, the world consists of 31.5% of Christians, 22.2% of Muslims, and Hindus are 15%, and majority happen to be in India. We have seen in India itself, when it comes to even Indian media, forget about the foreign media, of course, is biased and they don't like to stand up for Indians or for Hindus. But even in our case, every newspaper headline, if a person is killed, they will say one person killed. If a Muslim is killed, one person of minority community is killed. It is highlighted that it is so-and-so has been killed. Now, this is happening even in our country. So, therefore, apparently in India, minorities feel that they have a cause. Outside, the minorities are suppressed, and we are apparently shy of speaking for Hindus. So, I think there is a need for us to flag this. The Hindu organizations also need to perhaps speak up and build up a protection of this kind, because at the end of the day, if India doesn't speak, then who else will? That's the biggest question.
Yes, indeed. Let me also quickly join Deshat Nigam at this point. Deshat Nigam, the violence against Hindus continues in Bangladesh, and many are wondering as to why the usual suspects, who of course speak a lot for Ukraine, for Gaza, are not speaking out for Bangladeshi Hindus. Deshat Nigam, does this shock you? Does this surprise you or not? And what more can be done by us now.
Before answering your question, let me tell you, the movement in Bangladesh, the so-called movement in Bangladesh was not a student movement, it was a camouflage. A very well-crafted camouflage where in the process, the secular forces and democratic forces were defeated in Bangladesh. It was converted into anti-Hindu, anti-minority movement out there. It, as rightly pointed out by other speakers, over the 75 years, this program has been continued and Hindus have decreased by 16 million, as rightly pointed out. The fact remains that even today, the interim government does not represent all sections of the society. Interim government must also represent the other secular democratic forces. But what we are seeing is basically the NP people, the other Islamic forces which are being represented, and the secular forces have been sidelined out there. And the people, anti-India people, are being released from the jail, which is also a very dangerous thing. People who supported Ulfa or provided arms for Ulfas, their names are there in today's list, they are being released. So a continuous program, a well thought about strategy is going on. Yes, there are people in India who are not speaking. The headliners who make headlines in the world are quiet because India or Hindus are not the one who finance them or sponsor them. There is a cabal which is responsible for, hiding the facts about Hindus' genocide or the attacks on Hindus. It has been going on in Bangladesh for a very, very long time. And then there is a hypocrisy where in the morning they try to show a photograph of saving a temple and in the night the very same temple is burnt. So a lot of complex issues are there. And Indian government has a number of options. Not many things can be said on channel also, both over the table and under the table. Government of India, I'm sure, is handling the situation and they have formed a high-level committee. But a lot may be discussed in the committee, which may not be discussed outside. But the fact remains, situation is very serious in Bangladesh, and the global outcry is in the right direction. You've seen, protest in Bangladesh before the White House or the Houses of Parliament in UK and other places, which is very good in Houston also. So the global community, Hindu community, is getting united. A lot more needs to be done, but a message for Bangladeshi Hindus: this is not the time to run now. You've got to unite, and laws in the country, even in Bangladesh, provide you the right to self-defense. And to the extent of which has to be proportionate in answer to your attack. And therefore, that law exists worldwide. Even in India also, we must understand the Bhagavad Gita should be your prime, motive and objective, what it has been taught there. You cannot be doing abject surrender. You have to unite yourself. And I'm sure Government of India, through its back channels, through its other ways, India supported Mukti Bahani at that point of time, created their own, set of people who took the charge. And I don't want to say anything more than that, but I am sure Government of India must be mulling various aspects. And the seriousness of the situation is that you destroy the statue of your founder, Bangladesh Mujibur Rahman. Then you destroy the symbol that those statues where the surrender of Pakistani forces have been taking place. I've seen those photographs today. That means the people who have taken over are highly radicalized Islamists. They have gone into a very different mold. So I don't think interim government will be able to do much about it because the ones who are running it have a very different agenda and this thing. And the Government of India needs to consider that aspect very, very seriously. And under the table or over the table, whatever actions need to be taken, I'm sure they must be considering, and the wheels have been put in motion also. And today, the global community of which India is a part, and Hindus are very well placed all over the world, whether it is the Microsoft or whatever organization they are, in their own individual capacity, they must mobilize people, they must mobilize finances, and to ensure that the Bangladeshis don't have to run again. We have done it. We have seen in the past during partition how the partition was to be affected. However, absolutely opposite took place. The movement of the population did not take place. It was only one-sided. And whatever was left also of the minorities in these countries are being wiped out. So issues are very serious. And we must also expose this fake fact checkers who are there in India, who are silent. And they are already getting exposed. They have no feeling for Hindus because their akas or their sponsors sit in the West. And they have probably are silent about it. So Hindus' lives do matter, and they must matter, and we must rise and resist all over the world, and especially in Bangladesh, within the four walls of the laws. And the laws do, as I said, provide your right to self-defense. Organize yourself, resist, and you will be a winner. That is my simple message to the global community of Hindus as well as in Bangladesh.
Okay, let me take that across to Major Lestana as well. Major Lestana, now the fact, of course, is that many are wondering as to what the objective of this protest is. You know, it started out as being against quotas, but has continued, of course, after Sheikh Hasina's ouster as well. You have now statues of Mujibur Rahman vandalized, but you also have statues of the Pakistan surrender being vandalized as well. So many are wondering what are the intentions of what is happening in Bangladesh?
It's a cocktail of the indigenous issue, which was the quota issue, which is absolutely sidelined because quota issue did not exist after Supreme Court gave a ruling. So I don't think that was the real cause. The question is that it has got mixed up with all the elements of ISI, all the elements of Jamatis, BNPs, who wanted to get power through some manner or the other. Similarly, a certain external hand to strengthen that, certain other powers who had some interest there. Nowadays, as we speak, one of the major instruments of war against any target country is creating social unrest. And in a developing democracy, you will always find that there are certain disgruntled elements and there are certain causes which can be played up to create a social unrest, and that is exactly what has happened. So therefore, as was rightly mentioned by Deshratna Nigam, that agenda is different. Agenda is that all the Islamic radicals want to come to power, and they have come to power. Now, it's a very rare case which I have seen anywhere in the world where a student, just to change the Supreme Court, they just have to get around the Supreme Court and tell the Chief Justice, please resign in 2 hours, and it happens. And other cases also go. Now, this is a very dangerous trend. It is not going to leave Bangladesh, whether it is interim government or any kind of government, even the next government will not be able to sleep well. Let me tell you in no uncertain terms, because people have got used to a particular idea that they can do vandalism and they can do protests and change the regimes out of protest. Now, and this is happening again and again. And here I must question the professionalism of Bangladesh army too. Because as army, you can't allow that to happen in your country. What nonsense. Because this is going to lead to something which even the Bangladesh army will not be able to control. Because tomorrow, if people assemble in millions, what will they do? You can't keep having Jallianwala Bagh in your country every time. Now tomorrow, today it is something. Tomorrow, if the whole everybody gangs up around the Chief of Army Staff's house and says, okay, you please resign in next 2 hours, then what does it happen? What do you do thereafter? So I think it's a very dangerous trend, and army should have acted. They have not acted, unfortunately, and they have not. I must say that they have not saved their country, because the country is certainly going to docks. They are going to through the radicalization phase. It is a Pakistanization of Bangladesh which is happening, and very soon you will find that it is Bangladesh and all these people who are going to suffer maximum. They are not understanding it today, but they will perhaps understand it tomorrow.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.